Control is not about arrogance, it's about survival. It's not about power, it's about protection. The reason why you control is because you don't feel safe. There's deep, unmet feelings around safety. So when you were younger, you were in an unstable environment. There was not enough love, or there was an inconsistency of love, or maybe love was conditional. Maybe you moved around a lot. Whenever your routine system was trying to take root, the plant was uprooted and moved to a different location to start the process over. And as soon as the roots wanted to take, the plant was pulled again and moved to a different location. So you couldn't build a healthy foundation in your life. That's a metaphor for an inconsistency of love, an inconsistency of validation, an inconsistency of attention, an inconsistency of a sense of belonging, an inconsistency of safety in relationship, feeling like you couldn't trust, feeling that something was going to go amiss whenever you let yourself go. So that is what control is about. You control so that you're not taken off guard, so that you're not met with life surprises, so that you don't have to face the unpredictability of life. You control because you don't want to feel powerless. You never want to feel powerless again. You never want to feel that sense of hopelessness or that sense of not having a grip on reality. So you control outcome. You steer relationships. You constantly calculating and planning the way forward as a way to not be taken off guard. So it's a protective strategy. It's a shield, if you will. Now, when you control, you cannot heal, because while you're controlling, you have suppressed all of those vulnerable feelings. You control to keep the feelings at bay. And in order to heal, in order to move forward, you need to feel those feelings. But in order to feel them, it means you have to go into vulnerability. Now, someone who controls learned that vulnerability was the danger zone. Because maybe you were invalidated for your vulnerability. Maybe you weren't met with support. Maybe you were met with judgment when you were vulnerable. So that became the danger zone. So you got into a habit of not feeling your feelings, not breathing them through, not letting them flow through your body and transmute themselves so that you can move forward into a higher dimension. You stopped that process when you started controlling. So you cannot actually heal. So while you're controlling, you are circling the same situations over and over and again, thinking that you have a sense of power and autonomy because you are in control, but you're actually not. Vulnerability means that you have to soften. It means that you need to be open, that you need to be receptive. And in receiving knowledge, receiving wisdom, receiving guidance from life, from the flow of life, the way life takes you, there's always signals in which way to go. You are blocked from that process. So you're actually not evolving. You're staying stuck in what you know. You're staying stuck in the level of your aptitudes, the level of your knowledge. You're not being governed with divine intelligence. Because when you connect with yourself, when you feel your feelings, you connect with a higher intelligence that is the Holy Spirit, because God lives in you. And then what happens is when you connected with yourself and you befriend yourself, you befriend your feelings, they're no longer the enemy. Vulnerability is no longer the enemy. When you do that, you allow for space for there to be movement and flow within you. And God's voice comes through. And a course of action guides from God on what you need to do. So you constantly fed with new information and new ideas on how to resolve situations in an sustainably intelligent way. That's when you connected yourself to the Holy Spirit. But when you're in control, you miss out on those gifts of wisdom. So I'm not judging you for controlling. I'm merely pointing out where it comes from, why you do it, and what it's creating in the here and now. How do you move forward? Well, you start paying attention. Now that you know this, you become aware that you're controlling in the moment of control. And in that moment of self-awareness, you will stop yourself. And in stopping yourself, you will allow for space for new information to come up and to guide you in your system. So you allow that process to happen and unfold. What you can do is get down on your hands and knees and pray and say, Lord, help me to stop controlling. Let me hear your voice. Show me what to do next in the situation. Or maybe you can ask for help. People who control battle to receive, because to receive means to become vulnerable and to trust. And that's not something that you're used to doing, because people let you down in the past. Life let you down in the past. But this is what you need to do. You need to open up and you need to soften like water. Water is surrendering. Water overcomes the hard. Water is eternal. It never dies. It's always, we've been drinking the same water since 4.6 billion years ago. And that's because it keeps transforming, because it's open, because it's receptive. When there's a river flowing and there's a rock, it just flows around the rock. It doesn't try and control the rock or move the rock out of the way. It adapts to life. And because of that, when it's hot, it becomes steam. When it's freezing, it becomes ice. When the temperature's warmer, it cools, and when the temperature's warmer, it thaws and it becomes a flowing river or the beautiful ocean. That's the nature of water. So it keeps transcending. It keeps changing form because it is open. And because of that, water is the closest thing to God. Water is ever yielding, water is ever giving, and that's the nature of God. And if we were to become like water, we would gain more. So think of water and think of what water would do in that situation. You know, it would probably flow around the situation. It would probably adapt to the situation. It would probably transmute itself or transcend. So allow for space. Allow for a pause. You know, if you can't ask for help, pray to God to guide you or to soften you onto what to do next. Open a self-help manual. Listen to a video online. Anything to break old pattern. But basically, in a nutshell, controlling is a defense mechanism, okay? It pretends to keep you safe, but it just keeps you stuck. And a lot of women control because of many reasons. We survived the patriarchy, and in surviving the patriarchy, we learn to control. Also, the way women are wired, we are the nurturers, so we're constantly scanning the environment, protecting our young, always looking. We're emotionally attuned, so we're always looking, taking the initiative on how to improve things, how to make better. So we are consciously attuned to life. So in that comes some fear, because that's how we navigate the environment. And with that comes the tendency to control. So we are controllers, but when we control, we can't be submissive. When you're controlling, it lowers your libido because it drains your energy. When you're controlling your husband or controlling events, you're not stopping to be feminine, to be vulnerable, to receive from him. Man's job is to give. Woman's job is to receive. If you consider sexual relations, the man gives and the woman opens up to receive. And that's how a baby is formed. So when you're controlling, you're not able to receive through a feminine way what the man is trying to give you, so you exhaust yourself. So then you're not in the mood for sex, and that creates frustration in the relationship, So as women especially, we need to come to understand control, be aware of it, and find other ways on how to heal and how to move forward. When you sit with your feelings and you befriend your body and you reconnect with yourself, your emotions transcend themselves and you move into a higher dimension of being, where you're wiser, where you have where you're operating from a higher intelligence, because that's what happens. You transcend. And that is the way to come into softness. That is the way to come back into your femininity. And I have made a video around sitting with your feelings, So look into that video and follow that process so that you can heal and that you can move forward.